Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit North Node, square opposition, or inconjunct one's natal Jupiter. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve the North Node, it can be about one's future, destiny, what you're learning and aspiring to be, where you're directed toward your mission, purpose at the time, and when you have a transit North Node basically making an adverse aspect to natal Jupiter, well, I'm going to elaborate on that, okay? Now, adverse aspects in astrology, well, squares and oppositions, of course, those are adverse and negative aspects. Now, an inconjunct aspect, it's neutral, but a neutral aspect can have good and bad qualities in them. And an inconjunct can often require an adjustment or a transition. And that, of course, can cause some exasperation and tension. So collectively, basically, I do see this as an adverse transit. Now, in transit North Node is basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Jupiter. Well, it may manifest in one's future destiny, what you're learning and aspiring to be, where you're directed toward. Your mission, your purpose, those things may conflict with just simply expanding horizons. It might be, well, the thing is, you are expanding horizons by, I would say, through the North Node, a transit where you feel you're directed toward, but there might be something else that you're trying to do in terms of expanding your horizons, and there might be a conflict between that and another place where you feel you're directed to in your life at this time. And the thing is, too, Jupiter is also about enthusiasm and exuberance. So you might not have an overabundance of exuberance and enthusiasm, or even be optimistic regarding where you feel this future may lie right now. And it could be, say if you have this in Sagittarius in the 10th house, it could be doing something with sports. It's something where you might be mentoring in sports, called sports mentoring. Sagittarius could be connected with sports, and the 10th house mentoring. Or you're doing Aquarius in the 11th house. It could be something in astrology or computers or electronics in some group-oriented situation. The thing is, also too, I mean, again, Jupiter is about our optimism, and you just might not have that optimism, again, that enthusiasm, that exuberance, and where you feel your mission, your purpose may lie at the time of this transit. Now, another thing is that Jupiter is connected with the truth, its veracity, and it can be where when you have this transit, maybe it's hard for you to accept the truth regarding where your future lies at this time. And it doesn't mean that the future is necessarily bad. It just might be something you may not really want to be involved in at the time for whatever reason, whether you have other things taking precedence over this in your life or what have you. And the thing is, this could be, let's say for example, the North Node, the transit North Node is in Capricorn in the 4th house. It could be just trying the future where maybe lying in connection with getting structure and discipline and more responsibility in your home life, and maybe planning for that latter part of life. Capricorn, of course, could be very planned, premeditative energy, and the 4th house is connected with that latter part of one's life. Now, another thing is that Jupiter is about the law. So you have to be careful at this time that you're not, being directed somewhere where it would be adversarial toward the law. Make sure, you have your, double check your friends, and, that they are, how do I put this, scrupulous, that they don't have ulterior motives, they don't have some hidden agenda they might lead somebody. You don't want to be in a situation where somebody may be leading you on the path to ruin. There might be some pretense that they're okay, and they don't have any aim toward you that's going to be negative or get you embroiled in something that might be detrimental to you. But it's a time, I would say, to be extra careful of that. Now, another thing too is Jupiter is about our philosophy, our beliefs, our opinions. And when you have this this transit, it might be harder for you maybe to, as far as your future goes, maybe accepting it could be accepting some kind of belief or some kind of philosophy at this time. Maybe somehow where you feel you're directed is really going against your philosophy. Say if Jupiter, the natal Jupiter is in Aquarius, and the North Node is in transit. North Node is in Leo. I mean, though that energy, of course, is diametrically opposed. Jupiter in Aquarius, it might be more of a philosophy of altruism or selflessness and being unobtrusive, not really wanting to necessarily to stand out, doing things more in a group-related situation and doing things collectively rather than doing things for the individual and shining and standing out. Or the North Node in Leo is more where the future might be trying to command some kind of attention and get some kind of notoriety and recognition. Now, another thing is that anatomically speaking, Jupiter is connected with the liver, pancreas, sciatic nerve, hips, and obesity. So the thing about this is if you are experiencing any chronic issues with what I described, or something that's where you're really debilitated, and it's something connected with what I described anatomically with Jupiter, those things may derail you from what you're trying to pursue, where you're trying to learn and aspire to be at this time, and where you feel you're directed towards. So it's something to keep in mind during this time. Now, especially if you had these issues prior to the transit, because the thing about this is when the transit is not adverse, of course, you may be able to cope with things a little bit better. They may not necessarily derail you from where you're going. And the thing about this is it can be where the situation can become worse if you have any of these existing issues that I described anatomically connected with Jupiter, that might be negative in terms of as far as impacting your mission, your purpose at the time of this transit. Now, another thing is that Jupiter is also connected with higher education. You might not feel your future lies with that right now. If you've been trying to decide between higher education or just getting by, what you basically learned, from high school, just general grade school, including high school, your street sense, it might be where you might be trying to go in that direction other than higher education. And this is where even if you feel you need to further educate yourself, you just might not think at this point in time that is where you're destined to be at this time of this transit. And also Jupiter is connected with publishing, and if you're somebody that especially has been publishing, or you might be somebody where it might be a time, or if you had aspirations of being involved in publishing, when you have this transit, you might be going the other way because you might feel your future and your destiny is not associated with this at this point in time, and it might be harder to learn if you're trying to learn some kind of something with publishing. If there's some trade or what have you, this could be a time where it might be more difficult. Or if you're somebody that publishes consistently, it might be some issue that you need to address or confront, and might be conflicting with this at this point in time. Jupiter is also about a recklessness, it's extravagance, and the thing about this is be careful during this time where if you're spending extravagantly, maybe it might derail you from spending the money maybe you need in connection with the North Node transit, whether it's going to college, or it might be funding a business or what have you at this time. So it's something to be wary of when you do have this transit. Now, another way this transit may manifest, it could be that qualities that need to be developed may conflict with you, again going back to expanding horizons. Now, if the transit North Node is in Taurus, as an example, Taurus in the 8th house, it could be trying to gain some stability and persistence, which is Taurus, in a shared resources situation, which of course that's associated with the 8th house. And it might be a time too where issues that you may need to confront or address may challenge. It could be sports and outdoor activities. If there's some issue like with a business or something, it might be taking precedence over your leisure, over doing things more outdoors, and doing something, that are sports related. Say if your natal Jupiter's in Gemini, maybe it's something, like a Gemini type sport that requires quick reactions, say like table tennis or badminton, as some examples. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now if the North Node is in Pisces, in the, say for example, Pisces in the 11th house, it could be those issues that you might have to address or confront, may be connected with betrayal or deception, which is Pisces, by a friend, which is the 11th house. Now, also too, where your future lies may conflict with what you're expressing enthusiasm for. Now, if the North Node is in Cancer in the 3rd house, the transit, it can be nurturing and caring, which is Cancer, for it could be for perhaps siblings, cousins, or neighbors. That's associated with the 3rd house. Now, also too, another way this transit may be expressed, it could be what might be harder for you to learn and aspiring to be, something due to maybe, again, issues with the liver, obesity, could be sciatic nerve, something with the hips, the pancreas, as some examples. And also, it just might be having difficulty in general, finding the exuberance and enthusiasm to pursue what's connected with the North Node in general at this time. And going back to the zodiac sign Cancer, if the transit is in Cancer in the 10th house, it could be some cooking, culinary, restaurant, career, as an example. So anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.